indicated. So if you can't hear, this is the gesture. I generally scan around. So if somebody's doing that, I'll try to get my voice up. I've been teaching for 37 years. It's wearing out. It's not as loud as it used to be, but I can make an effort. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I kind of reflecting and the voice tone drops. So please feel free to indicate, because I want you to hear it. And if to other people it sounds like I'm shouting at them, just understand that's what it's about. So, those of you here yesterday, is to recollect how that was for you and where it left you, and what happened when you left here. Were you able to? This is not an interrogation, but how was the evening? You know, is it anything change, anything shift? What do you feel like? What seemed worth doing or not doing? Just to notice to yourself how these practices and teachings can integrate, because we are, there's certainly this amount of informing that's needed, and we have a specific experience in here that one can go away with and perhaps have learnt something from. But ideally, what we're looking at really is the possibility of transformation, not of the I am having some new stuff to think about, but actually a transformation of one's inclinations, one's instincts, one's intuitions, one's impressions, and so just to follow the lead. If one's at the end of retreat, you do feel like, so I don't feel like that anymore, I'm not interested in that. Do you have the opportunity to follow up what your citta is suggesting? It's saying, enough of that, I'd sooner have this right now. So we don't go back to our I am habits, however they may be, and however blameless they may be. We're not looking really at blame or anything like that, but just what fits, what's fitting. And this in a way is a responsibility for all of us, particularly if your I am package is going quite nicely. Which often it isn't. It's got some good bits and some rough patches, but even a good one, you think, well, is there anything? Listen more closely and check the reflexes, check the jump, check the impulse. Just check it. Don't say yes or no. Just allow yourself those pauses and what's happening? What's interesting me now? What's moving me now? Get to know it and feel it more fully, so that we all have and have to have a personality and an I am, or as our manifestation in this world. But the idea is you don't let it lead you. You keep tuning it, overhauling it. It's like a vehicle. It needs servicing. Take the wheels off. We come to retreat, you should take the wheels off, you take the whole thing apart and clean it up, and then you can put what you want back in again. So this is the ongoing, I would suggest, responsibility. It's a heavy word, but if you really care about your heart, your awareness, your purity, your what I'm talking about, your presence, your wholeness, if you really care about that, then you do have responsibility to keep checking in with it. Check in with it, and don't let your personhood override it. And so certainly when the scenario changes, we're out of this, and then we go, oh, well, here I am again going home, or wait a minute, this is a time when one needs to be specifically, I wouldn't say cautious, but vigilant. Now, for a monk, you've got the advantage is you're always more or less in some training situation. So, but for people in the general world, you come from a quite closely monitored situation into a pretty, random stuff. And that's where you do nobody can guide you through that, really, because it's so random. And nobody else knows what triggers you, where your touchy points are or your issues are, but nobody else can know that. So it's your learning curve, your learning ground. And really it's not, there's no system to do that, apart from to check and to pause and to step back and to listen and to try, just explore, negotiate. Is this right? Is this comfortable? Do I need this? Do I want this? How is this? What's happening? And that's not by no means negation, it's just fine, that's what's happening. Good, great. Now I know what's happening, I'm really with that, very full response. Not certain, wait. Definitely not interested, not obliged to. Not obliged to be, that ongoing personality. So, really reflect on that particularly when we leave today. Yeah. So, my evening was rather undramatic. So, get back to the house. I'm staying with some good friends. I sit there and drink hot liquid. Kind of looking at a book of paintings. My eyes rest on that. About an hour or so, enough. That's it. Just go sit upstairs, look out the window into the night. And, it's a high charged experience, teaching retreat. I don't regret it. I want to do it, but it's a high charged experience. And I check in with my citta. I want to do this. Well, that does mean at the end of it, it's likely you just want to look out the window, not say anything to anybody. And you follow it. It's not socially gracious, but generally with Dhamma friends they understand. So, it's a little example. I'm not always like this. And I can't be always like this. But you can have these obligation. What I'm talking about today really are these, might say, perceptual, emotional, intuitive messages or signals. And I'll try to give more about that. And these can have certain codes of obligation. People want me to. I have to. Women are supposed to. Monks should be. I should be. My kids want me to. My mother wants me to. And these or just not even a name, just this feeling I ought to. Probably, So these are things we want to check in with, because these start to send signals that mean at that time your citta is secondary to the signal. So in other words, your sense of wholeness or presence, balance, that comes second. First thing is this signal, obligation. Right? That's one signal. There are quite a few. The signal comes first. The wholeness, it takes a little bit more time to check in with wholeness. It takes time to establish it, presence, balance. It can take quite a while to establish it, even when you're trained in establishing, just to go back to that. So the first thing that comes is the signal, okay, I'll do that. This is not good. Who is that? Who's telling you? What would it take to go against that signal? Fear of blame, fear of being rejected, fear of not being good enough, fear of looking like a fool, inadequate, lazy. Yeah, Signal. Where did that one come from? So we just... And meanwhile, something that can be carefully established, that makes us really realise this is not a construction, this is something I'm opening into, quite precious, where a sense of balance, wholeness, presence is there. That is secondary. To this. Not good. Because, this is where we lose touch with ourselves, you might say. Lose touch with our hearts, our awareness. Lose touch with this quality that I've called the I before the I am. It's a subjective quality, and you can only experience it subjectively. All the words I use may help you to remember that. But you can feel being that, but you can never really discern it as an object. You can discern how it affects your body. Your body feels suddenly different. You can discern how it affects your mind and heart. Perhaps your emotions change, your thinking slows down or something. But you can't really discern what's doing that. It's a sense of something, this is what I'm referring to. And it takes time to establish that, and not just establish, but also to realise it's not a fluke experience. This is actually ground norm. Everything else is built upon that, constructed upon that basis. Yeah? And as you do recognise, I'm sure, the nature of the constructed thinking, habits, attitudes, perceptions, impressions, phobias, addictions, they're constructed. They're temporary, they're changing, they're moving. A lot of juice, they rush up. Sometimes they become extremely stressful, and you have to really work at chilling them out, calming them down, cooling it down, relaxing it, easing it, overcoming the negativity and the aversion to oneself and the feeling of inadequacy and the self-criticism, just working with that. It takes time to get those things to quiet and even to get some space from them. That's the constructed. And and then there's something unconstructed. And the constructed, for an average person, is I am, is the self. For the aspirant, the construct is beginning to be recognised as, this is not so good, and I don't feel so good about this one, and then I think I can do something about it. I could check that. Generally because some habits become so corrosive that you can't bear them anymore. So, I've got to do something about this. So you start to get some, and you realise you can. This is an enormous breakthrough where confidence and faith arise. That you can have some say over the I am, and the I am can change. Now, we don't want to just have another I am, which is sort of tidied up a bit. That's better than nothing, sure. But when you've got the potential for change, you want to be able to realise something that's not I am at all. Not just have another one. Because even another one, sooner or later, is going to get into these stuck places. And the stuck places are essentially that the I am, the set of assumptions, values, qualities, attitudes, energies, are seen or experienced as something I operate through, I rely upon, and in that I don't listen to other people, really, who've got their own I ams. Or I listen to them through, oh well, she's got a problem, there she goes. I condone, or I criticise, or I compare. I do what's good for them. I sort them out. Tell them what's wrong with them, sort them out, and then they get annoyed with me. They call me bossy and intrusive, but I'm trying to help them out. So, and that's even when it's doing good. But of course, we can notice these I ams can do some pretty horrible things. Sometimes knowing they're horrible, because you deserve it. It's good for you anyway. Or not knowing they're horrible. Condoning, patronising. So this is, and of course this is huge. Stories can evolve from that. Imperialism, conquest. Sail a boat around somebody else's country, decide it's yours, and they decide you'll civilise them for their welfare. So they too can benefit from your civilization. This is on the Great Britain, particularly, imperialist. So much better than everybody else. Yeah. So, and probably quite a few people thinking they were in some ways helping to get people on the right path. Christianity also. Get people on the right path for their welfare. Burn them at the stake, in fact, so their souls go to heaven. It's regrettable but necessary. So, what is all this about? Where does it begin? So today will be the aggregates, really, and because this isn't a particularly immediately easy reference for people. Aggregates is generally something you mix with cement. So I'll respectfully, put that aside, and instead I'll focus on two particular aggregates, and I'll try to make them a little more user-friendly. So the aggregates I'll be focusing on three: feeling. Basically, it's not what I feel about you, but this the quality of pleasure or displeasure. Very simple. It's not emotion, it's just feeling. And what's called sanya, perception, which means the immediate impression that arises. You see something, apple. You see something, Joseph. You see something, immediate flash. It's a global, overall recognition before we go into the details. And perception rises, and then based upon perception, this other experience called activation, sankhara. Different words translate that. Here I'll just use activation. It means something switches on and we act. We go for it, we analyse it, some significant action starts to occur. We experience something, there's a flash of recognition, and then there's an impulse to do something, to engage with it, to go into it, to dismiss it, to move away. To go into it, to analyse it, to favour it, to decide what to do with it. Yeah. To operate in terms of goodwill or aversion or greed or generosity, flash. We see something, flash, we get it, and boom, there's an activation, sankhara. And these are the systems we work through. They're not evil. Sometimes they are. But they're systems, these are the generated systems. They're generated. Because you imagine, if you newborn baby, you show them an apple, they don't necessarily know what it is. After a year or so, they will. That's why when you're a little toddler, when I was a little toddler, I go around putting bits of coal in my mouth. Mother said, no, you don't eat coal. You don't know. Now, after a while, I didn't need to know to be told that. But first of all, you see, mostly little kids, very tiny tots, you've got two things. You touch something, and you put it in your mouth. Because that's what you want to do as a baby. You need feeding. So they say, don't do that, Don't take the top off the bleach bottle, So they have all kinds of things. Because kids will do that and take a hit. Can't read. So bottle means something nice to drink. That's the perception when you're 2. Nice fruit juice or pop or soda or something. So you don't know can of bleach. Bottle equals drink it. But over time your perceptual categories get more and more refined. And some you do, some you don't. This. So that's perception, and they're generated, they're created, and they're created through experience because there's so much experience. A lot of them are created by other people who tell us, don't do that. You don't have to go through the whole thing. Somebody tells you, and you trust them. This is very. Aha. And there's an aha moment because with bottles of bleach that's pretty standard. But messages about other people, how you should dress, how to behave, you get instructed in those, and maybe that is their opinion, or it's something that So all perception is an immediate thing, but it's all created either through one's own experience or through the information, the education, the grooming, the programming of other people. And by and large, because we suddenly arise in a very complex world, a considerable amount of our perceptual programming is going to come through other people, or the group, or the collective, or the newspaper, or the television, or, how much of that can you trust? And so secondly, upon that perceptual imprint, then the activations start. And these also are generated. What to do when that occurs. And many of these are quite instinctive. You hear a bang and you run. Sometimes it's the wrong thing to do. You trample each other, panic, trying to get out of something. But that's a generated reflex, generated by nature, by the body. And you can get other reflexes generated through your own experience. This is what to do when this buzzer sounds. This is what to do when this person says this. This is what to do when the clock is doing that, and so on. Or by the information of others. In many situations, a lot of the information or the program of others is to act quickly, to act as quickly as possible, to, particularly in terms of any kind of work or something meaningful, then you should do it as promptly, as quickly as possible. So this is a very strong social condition. So your activation system is not just tuned, taught what to do, it's also taught at what speed to do it. And quite a lot of this is getting faster. The aim is to get faster so that you can do the right thing as quickly as possible to get on to the next thing. Yeah? And my personal experience is faster, generally stupider. Faster, less time to check in with, how am I with that? Is that correct? If I take it to my heart, what do I feel about that? If I take that into presence, is that something I really want to give a lot of energy to? Faster means all that cut out, signal, go. So much so that when nobody else is telling me, still that's the speed I could be operating at. It's been programmed to operate at that particular speed. Yeah. These two, feeling, perception, and sankhara or activations, and the net aggregation, which really means that certain things are welded together, stuck together. The aggregation, though, is the I am. That's the mode I operate in, even though I didn't even create it. And even though a lot of it's created just upon bias, prejudice, assumption, notions, it's glued together. And it's glued together with a certain intensity of gluing. That means when I challenge it, it doesn't like it. Because it doesn't know what it's like to not be glued. And there's the disorientation. My compulsion alarms me, but my non-compulsion scares me. Because I feel, what am I supposed to, how am I, am I right, wrong, am I good, bad, am I stupid? I can't find the judgments. Because of course the non-compulsive, the judging is a compulsion. So when you get into non-compulsive, you can't really judge it as good or bad or right or wrong. And you have to sit in it. Feel your body in it. Notice the effects. It's dying down. I want to be here more often. That's all you know. And checking in with that. So of course, in your daily life this may seem a big thing to ask. But that makes it even more important to, specifically spend time both acknowledging the I ams without adding judgment, blame, hurry up and change to something else, without adding more of that stuff to it. How it is, be aware of it with openness, compassion, and then start to see where are the places particularly extremely unpleasant, very frazzled or sore. And can those, the ones you really don't like, first of all, start to ease up on those. I don't have to be scared, I don't have to apologise for my existence, I don't have to constantly feel unwelcome, I don't have to tell everybody else what to do, I don't have to oblige to be da-da-da-da-da. Just pause. Feel your body. Come into your body. This is using body as refuge. So that the internal body or the internal internalization of body consciousness acts as a, if there's anything you can trust, where are you going to find it really? Where, me, somebody else, book. You got this, and you can feel the feeling of the experience of it, and it happens. Yeah, and it brings you to a place you want to be at. You've got to trust it. Say, well, okay, I'll find out, but this is not a bad place to start. Yeah. So you really start to use that, and around these activations. First thing. Yeah. Feel like I, defining myself, criticizing myself, criticizing others, whatever. Okay, how is that? Not you shouldn't do it. How is that? Coming into your body, feeling how it's energized your body, because activations play out on your body. Yeah. And so this is something, again, a great key and a great thing to know. The activation sankharas cross body, mind. Yeah, so you can feel yourself rising up in your eyes, closing your chest, tightening your belly, going cold, going hot, losing your feet, wow, what's happening? And then coming back into the place of wholeness and feeling what happens. Maintaining that whole body presence till that activation then is checked, it's not added to, and as we come into wholeness, its energies can change. There's often be a draining effect. And there's been no complaining or criticism, it's just, that's fine, let's hold that. Okay. So we do this, that's my encouragement, as definitely a practice, until it can be the case that you've really understood that particular voice of going, got to do this. I've tested this, done field work on this for quite a few times now, and it's really wrong. It does not do me good. It is unnecessary, it's compulsive, I'm also hooked on it. I've got to really, look at situations where that can occur and start to limit them or check them, or have some way of protecting myself from those experiences, from that triggering. Don't need any more of that. It's like when you're an addict, first thing to know is you're addicted. And then you can't touch the bottle. I'm putting this very strongly because these aren't necessarily, poison. They are poisons. And so then as you begin to the self-criticism, feeling inadequate, feeling superior, feeling inferior, and the compulsions that come upon those. And then you go back to what we say, the feeling, but actually the feeling is the perception, the impression, the self-impression of I am. And check that, or the impression of others, or the impression of what needs to be done. The immediate flash we get when our mind names something, forms a classification of something. Right? This is Betsy. Boom. Right. Got my thing to do with her. People, but not just people, but this is my house, I need to do this. This is my job, I do it this way. This is my... anything that is mine, or that I am in, so we don't necessarily notice that I'm-ness. We notice the thing which needs, which ought to. and we don't notice the I-ness of it. But the I-ness is the most important bit. Because that's where the habits are embedded. Not in the car, or the person, or the job, or the whatever, but in the I-ness, which is called clinging. Not to say we shouldn't have friends, partners, cars, whatever, but then how to live lightly with that without this I-ness going on. But so that flash and the assumption that that immediate flash is giving me total 100% truth, unbiased. It's ludicrous, isn't it? You could get it in one, like a flash. 100% truth, unbiased, unvarnished. So I'll act on that. You know? And this is where all these perceptual biases, racism, gender, you know, what you name it, all occurs on that flash moment that we didn't check. So we check. And we check the perception that comes up when I look at myself, or think of myself, or look in the mirror, or, you know. Let's check. That's a perception. Likelihood is the some truth in it, at least subjectively. I'm frightened. I don't know. I feel awkward. I feel uncertain. Probably that's there. I don't like that though. So instead I jump to some kind of conclusion, an easy one. Because that uncertainty is uncomfortable for the I am. The I am wants to be nice, aggregate, clung, stuck together. But check it out, truth of the matter is, perception is always, biased, subjective. A ballpark beginning, at best. A culturally conditioned impression. Fair enough. That's what we've got to work with. But instead we pause, check. And say, and then instead of basing our action purely upon the perception itself, we base our action upon what, as I enter wholeness, what is of value in terms of intention, what is respectful, myself and others, in terms of intention, what is kindly, what is undeceptive, what is undemanding. You name it, Once you get there, Instead of acting upon, I'm going to act from there, because that's more core. That's probably as good as I can get, And as I act upon that, I check, how is that? Yeah. And particularly, with other people, I don't know. You check. How's that? This kind of process called negotiating contact. Okay, so we check perception because that's really where we begin. Perception is based upon contact. Contact is both, we might say, sense contact. That is, something strikes my eye, something strikes my ear, something touches my body, something hits my brain, my thought. Oh, dong, bell goes off. That's the first moment. That's called designation contact. Oh no, resistance impression, or the first impact impression. And secondly, there's what's called designation contact, which means this means. The bell means fire alarm. The bell means phone's going off. Okay, somebody else's phone, not mine. Fine. End of topic. Somebody else's phone, I can start blaming them. My phone, oh well. Just an accident. Designation impression. Right? That's the second kind of contact, where it's not just hits us, but we get a meaning. And this meaning is karmically established through acquired learning. What that bell means. It doesn't just mean sound, like a bird singing. It means some activate. That's what it means. Is it activate, switch the phone off, or activate, rush out of the room, or what? Or So these two are the basis of perception. Really, the basis, you can't have it without that. But this is happening all the time. That is, as soon as there is eye contact, ear contact, body contact, cognition contact, there's going to be that hit and then the interpretation. Cannot be any other way. There's attention. And then we must know we are in uncertain territory. And this is where we check the activations. We can't necessarily check the perception. That's the way I've learnt it. That's the way it is to me. Dogs I feel frightened of. That's the way it is. But I can at least check. I don't have to run away. I've learnt. Put that aside. And so forth. So you start to retrain your activations, and over time those begin to recondition the designations. So, okay, so spiders, creepy, crawly, nasty, crawly things. Running over my hand, ooh, spider, kill it, smash, dies. Perception of little running things scuttling along erratically, could jump on me and run up my leg or something. Don't like that. Perception of, understanding of little creature going its own way, looking for some grubs, does not occur. This thing is going to do me harm. It's only an inch wide, and yet it's going to cause me bother. Right? How ridiculous is that? And yet, you get that. So, I think I had that perception established. I don't know how or when. And then, but then living, in places where you get quite a few spiders, and spiders come in, and you see this thing stuck in a sink or something. It's obviously struggling. If I turn the tap on, it's going to drown. It's going to struggle. I can't do that. Whatever else, I can't do that. I can't kill the creature. Clearly, it's just panicking, trying to get out. I think, don't like this thing. Well, okay, I'll just get a little bit of cloth under it or something, and help it out. And it falls off the cloth, and you end up grabbing. Oh, suddenly, it's pathetic little creature looking for solace, so you hold it carefully and you take it out and say, oh, it wasn't. Your perception changes because your activation was reconditioned towards compassion and concern, and eventually you took the risk of having something you didn't quite like happen, but you take it out and say, okay, and then you see them differently. So it can change, right? But these are the things you start to work on. But to recognise once we establish and really train ourselves in strong values that tend to override my perceptual preferences, then the perceptual preferences themselves get reconfigured. Right. I think 37. I've been teaching 37 years. 40 years ago, you probably thought I was a rather shy person who wouldn't feel like they wanted to say anything in public, and you'd have been correct. But you know, there's a certain gratitude and respect and wish, and it overrides until eventually that thing changes. Don't see people in the same way. Don't experience oneself in the same way. Don't even think about myself very much. Perception of I am is rather fuzzy. And that hasn't come through smashing my ego, but just through acting inappropriately as best one can, with a sense of compassion and concern when it's asked for. And that, seemed pretty as good, reliable a standard as possible you can get, and it gradually starts to transform the person, and even begin to make the person rather unknown to me. It really is rather unknown to me. Do you know what I mean? I don't know who I am. It surprises me sometimes, because other people seem to know. I don't. Occasionally I get the impression of some kind of well-meaning old fellow who's pottering around not harming anyone. That's about as good as it gets. Anyway, let's get down to some practice. So, let's spend some time. One of what I would like to do today is, I think you've got some ideas there, and you have certain energies that, again, we'll just get them back to common or garden language. Thoughts, memories, emotions. Thoughts, memories, emotions. Cognitive process. When you're listening to your thought processes going on, try to just soften the focus on the actual words and pick up the emotional tone. Complaining, worried, uncertain, happy. What's it searching for? Searching for, a clear point. Getting to the end of its sentence where we'll know what to do, or when our business will be finished, when we'll have remembered what we need to remember, when we've got the plan of action of how it should be. It's trying to do that generally. That's its aim. And and occasionally it gets there, and you get this little burst, and then the next one starts. That's cognitive process. Try to get just the emotional tonality of it. Is it happy? Is it feeling inspired? Are certain anxieties coming up, or pressures? Emotional tone. You get to the emotional tone, and that's the significant thing, because that's where this whole activation process begins. It can result in cognitive stuff, but it begins in just this emotional, mental tonality. And if you're not certain what that mental tonality is, listen and then try to feel what's happening in your body, or what parts of your body are energized when you're thinking. Do you feel your fingers, your hands, your back, your legs, or is it mostly your eyes and your throat? Head. Check it out. How is the body when you're thinking? and see if you can come into the whole body, presence of the whole body as a felt experience, seeing the effect on, witnessing the effect on your thinking. You may then realize, oh, I feel rather worried. I didn't know that. Because often we don't. Yeah. Or I can't even name it, but it just feels very speedy. Speedy. Okay, that's good enough. Speedy, or spiraling round, looking for something, uncertainty. There's some tonality there. One can be quite brisk, one can be sort of less brisk, more slow and turning and spiraling. One could be briskly rushing forward. So you can get a kind of half impression of that. And then, and how does it feel to be with that? Whole body. And as you do so, does it unaggregate? Does it open into something else? These aggregates are glued together, so as they start to unglue, it looks differently. But that's not necessarily the end of the story, because it could unglue a bit more and it look different. That may not be the end of the story. Maybe it could... Oh, yeah. So even it just gives a little bit, keep staying with it, see it change. It went from, anxiety to sadness to anger to disappointment to frustration to tiredness.